Dave Heidi for quite a while, long before this new chamber job, and he is everywhere. He is all around Dane County, and I wanted to invite him to Cottage Grove today to talk with all of you and share a little bit more about what he has done to help our communities with food insecurity. So, Chef Dave Heidi.
I have a double mic in it. It's all good. Can you guys hear me okay? Do you guys mind if I take this off? Is that okay? I'll keep more than 6 feet back. Is that good? So my name is Chef Dave. Thank you for the introduction. And I didn't start out with food insecurity. I started out being a chef. I went to Le Cordon Bleu. I graduated top of my class there, and then went out to California, worked at a couple Michelin-starred restaurants, and loved living in San Diego for a little bit, and then just really missed the Midwest and really wanted to raise my family here. So we came back. We opened up Liliana's. It's named after my firstborn. Well, actually, it's not anymore. My firstborn is non-binary and goes by Ali now, not Liliana. So I technically don't have a restaurant named after my kid right now. And then we also own Charlie's on Main in Oregon. That was named after my middle kiddo, Charlie. And that's now closed because of the pandemic. But we had a third kid. So thankfully, we have a restaurant named after my kiddo now, John, Little John's. And ever since I opened up, we decided that we didn't want to spend money on traditional marketing. No offense to any marketing people in here, but we really thought, why not take the dollar impact from the marketing we were doing and make an impact in the community? So since we opened in 2007, we've averaged about $100,000 a year in giving back into the community. That's why if you guys ever go to like any kind of gala, bet you odds are you're gonna see a Liliana's or a Charlie's or both certificate at the gala you go to. And in doing all of that, we got to see all of these different amazing organizations and where they were struggling, the things that they needed help with, the people that needed help, and we were trying to figure out a way to kind of do that. So this Little John's thing wasn't just an overnight, I guess I'll do this. It was a kind of build up over 13 years of being a chef to kind of figure out what I wanted to do and how I could help. So the long and short of what Little John's does is we take grocery excess. So we take the stuff that isn't saleable, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I promise you it's not garbage. It's really beautiful stuff. We take grocery excess, and we take military veterans. We train them for 6 months, paid $15 an hour, paid internship to teach them how to cook. There are a lot of people who they come back from service, and they don't really have a fit in society, and we try and give them a good life skill that they can use anywhere, not even for a living, but just to know how to cook for yourself. We train them for 6 months how to cook, and then afterwards we guarantee them a scholarship and full education for the culinary program at Madison College. So everyone who finishes our program gets a free associate's degree in culinary. And then we also, the food that we create goes out to 3 different main groups. We have places like assisted living facilities that we put food out to. We have schools. And then we also have assistance programs like Boys and Girls Club, Reach Dane, where we get food out to as well. I think one of the reasons I got excited about starting a nonprofit is all my frustrations I had with nonprofits, and I wanted to make a difference. And I think one of the biggest problems with nonprofits is right in the title. They're not profitable, right? Majority of you guys are all business owners, right? Like what if you could just get grant money coming in without having to actually sell a product? And sometimes what happens with a lot of nonprofits is that they tend not to look at it as a business. They think, oh, well, we'll do this really good thing, but then once they start it, they realize the cost of doing that is so high, they spend most of their time as a nonprofit fundraising. It's like politicians, like, I want to make a difference. Well, to make a difference, you got to get elected. How do I get elected? Raise money, right? And then they end up spending a majority of their election time raising money for their thing. It's the same thing with nonprofits. They spend so much time fundraising, they're not able to make the same impact per dollar that you could if you were just an individual person. So what I wanted to do is I said, hey, how could we make an impact? How could we feed people? And we actually did a thing at Madison College. This was like 4 years ago. It was for Sustain Dane, which is a group that works on sustainability. And they said, we're trying to focus on grocery excess. Would you be interested in coming on out and cooking with some grocery excess for people who would come? It's a free event. Anyone can come. And I said, sure, let me get some help. And I asked Patrick DePula. I don't know if you guys know Sal's Tomato Pies. But Patrick's another really great member of the buy local scene and all that. So I asked him to come on out and help me cook. It was a week before the event, and we thought would have maybe 100 people show up because they hadn't really been marketing it. And I reached out to Channel 5 News and I said, hey, could Patrick and I come on and talk about this event we're doing? It's free. And they said, sure. So we came on. This was 2 days before the event. We went on to Channel 5. We had this fun little interview and we went to bed and everything we thought was fine until the morning. We got a phone call from the organizer of the event and she was like, what did you do? I was like, what do you mean, what did I do? She's like, what did you do? And I said, I don't know. She said, well, overnight we sold 840 tickets. And now tomorrow you've got to cook for all of them. So I don't know if you've ever cooked for 850 people with only like an hour's worth of prep time, lead time. It's a lot of work. And I had reached out to Tim Metcalf earlier of Metcalf's Markets, and I had asked him for all of his excess from both stores for 2 days. And I had thought that was going to be like maybe 5 or 6 grocery bags worth of stuff. So I called Madison College kind of freaking out, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to feed all these people? And I called Tim and I said, can you get the food as early as possible over to Madison College so Patrick and I even have a chance to cook this food? And Tim was like, sure. And he even drove his little mini bus over there with the food. And it was so funny. We sent a volunteer out to help him load in because he texted me. He said, we're here with the food. So I sent a volunteer out with a cart and he came back with 6 grocery bags worth of food. And I was like, great, throw it on the table. We got to get to prep. And the volunteer looked at me and was like, there's more. And I was like, okay, well, go grab it. And he's like, okay. And he went out with the cart and he came back with 6 more bags. I was like, okay, throw them on there and we got to get to work. He's like, there's more. And I was like, okay, well, just come on, keep going. So he went back and forth to the bus 12 times with 6 bags each time. He filled up 8 8-foot stainless steel tables. So if you picture this table here in front, filled up 8 times with grocery bags, the height of a grocery bag, completely full. And that was just from 2 grocery stores from 2 days. We ended up having over 1,100 people that day. We cooked 6 courses, right? So that's 6,600 portions of food. And at the end of the day, we looked at the table. You couldn't tell that we had even touched it. And to me, that was an eye-opener. It was saying, like, holy crap, like, we just fed 6,600 portions of food. You can't even tell we made a dent. And this happens every other day from just 2 grocery stores. And there are 28 grocery stores just in the Madison area. So if you think 28, that's 14 times that amount every 2 days. That's 7 times that amount every single day that goes out, just in Madison. That's not even counting surrounding areas like Sun Prairie and whatnot, right? So for us, that was like a huge eye-opener. And when I had been working with all these other nonprofits, I had seen all these different, working with like DAYS, Domestic Abuse Intervention Services, working with, you name it, Salvation Army, River Food Pantry, Porch Light. I mean, all of them are trying to feed the food insecure, and they're all trying to do it how I would do it in my tiny little restaurant. They're able to cook maybe 100 portions at a time using traditional restaurant equipment, cooking as hard as they can, but they don't have trained chefs. It's really hard to get people with a limited budget to work in a kitchen, especially today. And they're working with really inefficient equipment. So my idea was, what if we could do a pay-what-you-can restaurant? So this is like 3 years ago. What if we can do a pay-what-you-can restaurant where we can use this grocery excess and we can feed people and anyone can come in regardless of means, right? So I've got a question for you. Guys have eaten at a restaurant before? Okay, put your hand down. How many of you guys have eaten at a restaurant where you sat at a table and were served by someone before? Raise your hand. Okay, actually this might be easier. How many of you guys have never eaten at a restaurant where you were served by someone? No one, right? And people have laughed. Like I even heard a couple chuckles, like, of course I've eaten at a restaurant where I've been served, right? But every single year at Liliana's, we would bring in the 5th grade class of Leopold, which is where my kids go. 66% of the kids that go to Leopold never get any food access other than like chips and snacks from anything other than school, right? So there's a huge amount of kids that really are struggling, are super food insecure. And so every year, even before I knew all of this, every year I'd invite the entire 5th grade out to Liliana's and I would serve them and would give them menus. They'd get to order, they'd get water poured. And I was just doing it as a fun thing. But I asked in one of them, this is after we've been doing it for 3 years, I was like, how many of you guys have been to a restaurant, have been to Liliana's before? And like 2 hands went up, right? And I was like, okay, well, how many of you guys have been to like a restaurant like this before? Maybe like 4 hands went up. And I was like, okay, well, how many of you guys have been like served like this? And maybe like 15 hands went up out of 80, right? And these are 5th graders. So this is, by the time you're in 5th grade, people who had never had a restaurant experience where they were treated like we all get treated every day. And another question for you, how many of you guys have ever had food delivered to your house before? right? If I were to ask the same question in that room, how many of them do you think would raise their hand? Probably not many. There's an added expense to delivery. Usually the food that is delivered is a lot more expensive, right? So the average cost of a meal for the Leopold neighborhood is $2.10 per kid. That's about how much the family spends per day. Do you guys have kids, any of you? Yeah? How many of you guys spend only $2 a day on your kids for food? Man, I don't even want to admit what I have to spend on my kids. I have 3 kids and a foster kiddo, and like our weekly grocery bill is like $650, and that's with me cooking everything from scratch and almost nothing pre-made. You know, a lot of these homes, you think about, well, how could you feed someone on that little money? Well, the answer is they don't, right? Or it's a $5 hot and ready pizza to feed 6 people, right? And when you think about nutrition, think about the things that we buy when we go to a grocery store. We shop the same route that everyone shops, that every grocery store sets us up. Where do we go first in a grocery store? Fresh produce, right? I mean, that's the first thing that every single grocery store sends you to is the fresh produce area. That's where every single door enters is fresh produce, because that's where they need you to buy the most to keep it turning. They want you to fill your cart up with the stuff that they have the highest margins on too. So the highest margins are in produce for grocery stores, right? So that's the first place we go. For those food insecure homes, how many of them do you think go right to the produce area? Almost none. Do you know how expensive it is? Like a bag of grapes, even at $3 a pound, which isn't even that expensive, that's like $12 for a bag of grapes, right? For a lot of us, that's just an easy pick. But what we notice is in a lot of our food insecure neighborhoods, what my perception was, and I think what a lot of your perceptions would be that if someone's food insecure, they don't look like me. They look tiny and skinny and thin because they're not getting enough food. And the reality is, it's the opposite. Food insecurity in America is obesity. The number 1 and number 2 killers in our poorest neighborhoods are heart disease and diabetes. More than gunshots, more than traffic violations, more than anything else, the number 1 and number 2 killers in our communities of our poor communities and our communities of color are heart disease and diabetes. Well, how do you fix those? Diet, right? So all of these things were things that it's a good chime. All these things were things that I really wanted to focus on, and I had always been trying to figure out, how do I do stuff? Like, we raise money for a garden bar at Leopold to get fresh vegetables in. We tried all this stuff. But until the food is cooked and ready to go, it's really hard to get kids excited about it. Giving someone a raw vegetable is a really hard way to get them excited about food. Giving them cooked, amazing vegetables, like that's how you get people excited about it, right? I got into restaurants not because I love cooking. I know you think I love cooking. I do, but that's not why I opened a restaurant. I opened a restaurant because I love making people happy. Like, that's my number 1 thing in the world. Like, if you could ask me, Dave, if you could do anything for the rest of your life, what would you want to do? It wouldn't be cook. It would be like, I just want to make people happy. I want to get people to have joy in their life. Like, that's what brings me joy, is having other people have joy. And for cooking, it's this magical ability, right? Like, I can be back in my kitchen. You could have never met me, but you could have come to my restaurant, and I could have had an emotional or a physical impact on you just from my cooking, right? And to me, that's like magic. Like, I can be way back, we never have met, and yet still I had an emotional reaction on you. I mean, think about this, right? If you put your hand down and you just feel your table, right? It's okay, feel your table. I know, it's weird, right? By feeling something, just a sense of touch, what do you feel, right? And for most of you, the answer is nothing, Dave. You just made me rub a table. Like, you're weird, right? But I want you to think about this. Sight, like as we look around, right? Even if you've been in this building before, by looking around the room, how many of you guys have an emotional reaction to looking at this room? Probably not many, right? But how many times have you guys ever walked into a building, even someplace you've never been before, and you've smelled, and all of a sudden you're like 7 years old in your grandma's basement playing hide and go seek with your cousin, right? Like, smell has this sense, this transportational ability to bring you back, to make this emotional connection with you. Same thing with taste. Have you ever taken a bite out of something at a restaurant you've never even been to, and you take a bite, and all of a sudden, and it's usually something that's really wrong, like lumpy potatoes or something like that, and all of a sudden you're like eating your mom's like mashed potatoes around the dining room table, right? Like, the thing that I love about food is that it's a way to have this emotional connection. And in a lot of our poorer communities, they used to be all about having enough time that a lot of the poorer communities would save money by cooking a lot of things from scratch, and there was this huge emotional attachment to the food that they were making. But more and more and more, have you guys noticed what's happening with like rent in Dane County and all across the US? When I graduated high school in 1998, I had a job at the chocolate shop. It was my first job. I was there for 3 years, and I made $11 an hour when I left chocolate shop. And my apartment was $340 in downtown Madison a month, right? Today, if you got a job at the chocolate shop, they're going to pay you $11 an hour. And can any of you find a $350 a month apartment in downtown Madison? If you can, just give me your number, because I've got like 35 people that are really desperately looking for that apartment, right? So we have this like scale of income not equaling what your cost of living should be. And what happens with that is that you have a lot of people who you can only pull from so many pouches in your life before you just don't have anymore, right? You can only spend less per week on groceries to a point until you don't even have groceries anymore for your family, right? So the idea of Little John's is taking all that grocery excess, and let's talk about grocery excess a little bit, because if you're anything like me, you get distracted by loud noises. But if you're anything like me, right? If I were to say the word grocery excess or food waste, I'm guessing everyone here would picture like really damaged or bruised fruit, expired product that had gone bad. Like you're thinking of bad food, right? And the thing you have to understand is that Little John's, we don't use bad food. That would be like restaurant excess. If at my restaurant, Liliana's, if I can't use it anymore, before it goes bad, I'm going to try and make a soup out of it. I'm going to try and make a stew out of it. I'm going to freeze it. I'm going to do something with it to make sure I'm not getting rid of it. But once I'm done with it, don't go dumpster diving at a restaurant, because once we're done with it, you shouldn't use it anymore, right? But at a grocery level, which is where Liliana is, or where Little John's is, and where we take from suppliers, we're actually taking from them before they need to get rid of it. So when you buy food from a grocery store, when you get home, how many of you guys would be okay with, if you bought a gallon of milk, especially from a high-end grocer like Metcalfe's, how many of you guys would be totally okay and not upset at all if the next day when you're sitting down eating your cereal, you looked at the milk that you just bought from a high-end grocery store and it said the sell-by date was tomorrow? How many of you guys would be totally cool with that? Yeah, no, you'd be pissed. I'd be pissed. You would not be cool with it. You'd be so pissed. Everyone would be pissed off. I'd be pissed. I run a nonprofit focused on food insecurity, and I would push every grocer to try and not have food waste, and I would be pissed. So it's okay. You're okay. It's okay to be pissed, right? But the reason why you're upset is because you paid a premium for a high-quality product, and what you got was something that, in your opinion, is garbage the next day. So when you buy something from a grocery store, you have this built-in expectation that anything you buy, minus maybe fresh seafood, should last you a week in your fridge, right? I mean, isn't that what most of you guys would assume, right? If you go to the grocery store on Tuesday and you're doing a cookout on Friday and Saturday, you can pick up your burger meat and your buns, and it should still be good for your cookout on the weekend, right? So what grocers do is they do this thing called pre-picking, where they'll go through and they'll pull product way before it's to its sell-by date. And the sell-by date on its own is crazy. So sell-by dates, the only government-required sell-by date in the entire United States is baby formula. Every other sell-by date you see is a manufacturer recommendation. So if you're a manufacturer, let's just put this into like a for-profit sense, right? If you're a for-profit business and you have a choice of when you're going to put your sell-by date, would you put it at the absolute farthest end so the grocer would have the most amount of time possible to sell it? Or would you bump your sell-by date up by quite a bit so that the grocer is going to have to buy more product from you? So that's what they do, right? So most sell-by dates, not all, but almost all sell-by dates are a sell-by date, which means it should still be good in your fridge for a week after that date, but are also totally arbitrary. And I know what some of you are thinking, like, oh yeah, well, I had a gallon of milk and it was the sell-by date on it and I smelled it and there was only this much left, but it smelled sour and that was on the sell-by date. So that's why I always trust the sell-by date on milk, right? But milk, when it comes into a grocer, it gets put completely sealed, never opened, in a very perfectly cool, dark place and held at a perfect temperature that entire time, right? When you get it home, be honest, when you guys bring your groceries home, how many of you are like, yeah, I just went to the grocery store, but I got to stop off at this one place, and I'm going to run in and grab something, and then I'm going to come home, and then I'm going to put it on my kitchen counter, and then I'm going to put away some stuff. Oh, the milk is still out. I'll put it out. And then you open it up, and you're eating your cereal in the morning, and you pour a splash, and then it's still out while you're eating your cereal, and then you put it back in the fridge, and each time you're opening it up, introducing more air, it's getting warmer. That's why it's going bad faster. Milk is actually good for 2 weeks after the sell-by date. Totally great drinkable, no sour smell, no sour taste whatsoever. All right? So that's really what grocery access is. Grocery access, and in fact, I bet you, here's a fun fact I bet you don't know about Metcalf's. We're getting right now about 600 pounds of ground beef a day between two Metcalf's, a day. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, well, why? Like, what a wasteful place. Like, and a lot of people will point fingers at Metcalf's. They're great. They're wonderful. They didn't do anything wrong. Love them. Shop there. Support them. But what they do, and this started with Tim's dad, Tom, every single day they grind their ground beef fresh, and after 24 hours, they don't sell it anymore because they don't put any preservatives, they don't do any gassing, and they don't put any bleach on their meat. And that's what most of you guys get. Have you guys ever broken into a beautiful thing of red ground beef and the inside is gray and oxidized? That's because they put a bleach substitute over the top of it to help keep oxidation from happening on the meat. They gas it. So if you go to like Target, right, you'll see all these like thicker, instead of the traditional like styrofoam with the plastic wrap over the top, you'll see like a thick plastic tray, and then the meat's inside of it, and there's a lot of air space in there, right? Well, the reason why that's there is because there's a gas in there that helps prevent oxidation. So you can actually open up a package of bright red, looks perfect from Target, and you'll smell it's gone so bad, but it doesn't look bad because we associate bad with oxidation. So anyway, so we, to date, from Metcalf's, have so far rescued, just from Metcalf's and just from their two stores, right? We've been able to rescue, just since October, we've been able to rescue over 78 tons of food. And the best part about that is we are last in line. So all the other food pantries go before us. All the other food insecurity places go before us. And we've been able to rescue that much food. We've been able to put out over 180,000 meals into the community just since October, right? So all of that is all through excess. We've been doing a lot through volunteers. We definitely need more help with volunteers. So if any of you guys are interested, have some free time, would love some volunteers. But I wanted to, how much longer do I have? I just want to make sure I don't. You go to one. Okay, I'll say this quicker than I could. I have a challenge for you guys, okay? And here's my challenge. And this doesn't have to be about Little John's, right? This isn't about me, right? This is about, the reason I chose Little John's is to make people happy and to help make the world a better place. I'm not going to be here forever, and I'd love for when I'm gone for it to be a better place than when I got here, right? Like, that's my goal. So this doesn't have to do with Little John's, but I have kind of a challenge for you. I think that one of the biggest problems we have today in the world is that everybody thinks that they're good, right? And I know you're thinking like, well, that's not bad. Like, we should think we're good. Like, it's Mr. Rogers, right? Like, we're good people. We're all happy. But like, in fact, let's even do a poll. How many of you guys think you're good? Oh, come on. Like, good or evil? Anyone not raising their hand thinks they're evil? Really? Okay. So you guys all think you're good, right? And that's okay. It's okay to think you're good. But the problem with thinking you're good is that you stop striving to be better, right? And when you think about where all of you guys started in your career path, right? Whatever you're doing today, right? Whether you're selling credit card processing fees, credit card processing to people, or whatever you're doing, right? And we need to think about when you started off in your profession. And I'll use me as an example, so not to call anyone out, right? When I started, I would get up and I would be looking at food porn, like beautiful pictures of the most beautifully done like plates so I could be better. I was reading cookbooks. I was following everything on Food Network to be a better chef. I spent hours a day. Even after I had just gotten done working 12 hours, I would stay up until I fell asleep looking at pictures to try and make my food better, studying recipes to be a better cook, right? If you were an attorney, I bet you sure as heck continued to study law after you got your bar, right? Like, we spend so much time right when we're out of the gate trying to be better at our craft because we're going into competition against people who are way better than we are. And if we want to stand a chance at surviving, we've got to be good, right? But think about what happens as we get older, as our careers go, as we start our own businesses. How much time do you spend every day working to be better at your job now? I want to be honest with you so you don't have to feel bad. I only spend maybe like an hour a week, maybe two, like doing what I used to do, like looking at pictures. But come on, man, I've been rated like Madison's top chef and like I've got my successful restaurant. I'm fine, or at least that's what I tell myself, right? But could I be better? Oh God, yeah. Like, could I learn more? Oh my God, yeah. But I've reached this level of complacency within my business where I don't need to be better, so why do I put the effort in? And I would put that same thought into doing good and being good. when we wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror and we see someone, we could see like, hey, I gave $10,000 this year to this awesome nonprofit. I spend an hour a week helping out with volunteering. Like, you can look in the mirror and you can say, I'm good. But I've got a question for you. For all of you who would say you're good, could you look in your mirror and could you ask yourself, honestly, could I have done a little more? And I will tell you, I don't think there's one person in here who couldn't say, yeah, I could probably do a little bit more, right? So I did this. I'll be quick, I promise. If we run 2 minutes late, you can hate me and give me a 1-star Yelp review. But where this all came from me, all this idea of doing good actually came from when I was in high school. And when I was in high school, we had to do an experiment for our psych class. And it was, you had to come up with your own theme. And it was our senior year. And I was like, at the time, feeling very like high school angsty, like, I can never make a difference. It sucks. Like, everything sucks. The world sucks, and politicians suck, and my teacher sucks for giving me this assignment. And that's what I felt. So me and 3 other people in my group, we put together something, and ours was, can we make a difference, right? And so our can we make a difference was just in our school. And this was in 98 I graduated, so 97 is when I did this thing. And it was just, can we make a difference? And we gave ourselves just a couple criteria. Number 1, we wanted to see if we could have just one engagement with a random person once a week to see if that could have any kind of impact, right? And the rules were, 1, it couldn't be money. You couldn't just go up to someone and be like, here's $20. You feel better? Huh? Right? You couldn't do that. Number 2, it had to be someone you didn't know, or someone at least that you would get nothing from. So you couldn't like help someone out so they'd help you out with your homework, right? You couldn't get anything out of it. And number 3 was there couldn't be any violence. You couldn't just go beat the crap out of a bully and be like, my deed is done. And the last one, and this was one of the most important ones, is it had to be done in public, okay? Why did it have to be done in public? Well, why do you think a police officer pulls you over in between exits on the Beltline? The safest thing to do would be to drive to the next exit, pull you over, and give you your ticket there, right? Well, what do you guys do every time you see a person pulled over? You slow down, right? Why? That is like the number 1 time you're getting away with it. Man, if anything, punch it. Go like 140 past, like you're in the clear. He's already stopped, right? And if there was a speed trap, they would have already nailed you. You're good to go, right? So why do we slow down? I don't know, but police officers know that, and that's why they pull you over in the middle, is because that one act has an impact on 50,000 cars that are going by. We all slow down for that part, right? And it all triggers in our head of what we're going to do, right? So I'm almost done, I promise. But so we wanted to make sure it was done in the hallway where people could see us. So during passing time is when we had to do our act of good. And just give you the short end of the story, over just 6 months, our last little bit of school, the impact in our school was night and day different. People were like helping each other. We weren't even able to get people in fast enough. Someone would run over in front of me and grab someone else's books to help them to class. Like, everything transformed because all of us have had that time in our lives where when we see someone struggling, our brain kicks in about why we shouldn't help, right? You'll see someone struggling for a box and you're like, well, I don't want to be creepy. I don't want to offend them. I don't want to like be a bother. Like, we have all these things telling us why we shouldn't be a helper, when what we should do is just help. And when we were in our class and we started being those action people and we started actively helping, other people saw us and said, oh, I should have done that, right? So here's my last little thing, I promise. Here's what I want you to think about. One of the biggest things I learned from that day was that I could make an impact, right? And I want you to use a totally different example, one that you can relate to, okay? I want you to picture this. I want you to picture you're at your office, at your desk, and you've got a can of soda that you just finished. And you set it down on your desk in front of you. And one of your friends comes in behind you, and they say, hey, man, we got to go. We got to run off to a meeting right now. And you're like, okay. Well, you're not going to leave garbage on your desk. And you've got 2 options. There's a garbage can under your desk, and there's a recycling can up a flight of stairs and at the end of the hall, right? Now, 99% of the people in this room, and it's okay, no judgment, 99% of the people in this room are just going to say, I recycle all the time. It's 1 can. It doesn't make a difference. And they're going to throw that one in the garbage down below instead of going up a flight of stairs and down the hall, right? But here's what I want you to think about. And this is how scale, about getting everyone to change their viewpoint and their opinion, can really affect, right? So city of Madison has 250,000 people in it. What if every single week, everyone had that same thought go through their head? It's just 1 can, right? And it doesn't make a big impact for that one person, right? But what if every single week, every single person in Madison didn't have that thought and instead thought, I should just put it up to the recycling bin? That's 250,000 cans a week just in the city of Madison. That's 1 million cans a month. That's 12 million cans a year that are going to end up in recycling instead of a landfill just by being able to flip that switch, right? So my goal is to get everyone to just kind of wake up and say, hey, like, could I do something more? Could I do one more little thing more? And the only person that's ever going to push you to do it is you, right? Every day I wake up and I say the same stupid thing in the mirror. You can even ask my wife. It's like, could I do something else today to help? And I don't do anything more than anyone else could do, but if you ask almost anyone in Madison, like, about me and what I do, every single person you're gonna run into is be like, oh my God, he does so much for the community and he does so much to help out. But I don't spend a lot of money. I know we did the 100,000, but since COVID, we've been doing it all through like just helping out, getting other people inspired. So my ask to all of you guys would be spend the time to just say, could I do something today, or even just once a week, to really make an impact in my community? If you look at just the 60 people in this room, 60 people once a week, that's a big ass impact. So anyway, I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me in today. And definitely, if you can, help support Little John's. I can tell you guys, I just was able to announce today, we just secured a $1 million donation from Pleasant Rowland for Little John's, but we still have thank you. We're super excited. I also am taking no pay from Little John's, so this is 100% me just trying to help out. So every dollar raised goes right into help getting food access to people and to help getting our build out done. So anything you do to help Little John's, you can go to littlejohnskitchens.org and help us out. Thanks, you guys. Well, actually, so one of the cool things about Little John's is that we're actually, we're not just going for Dane County. Our eventual goal is to also take over the MMSD food and try and get real good nutrition to our kids in our school system. And then we also have plans for expansion, not just in Madison, but eventually going to Milwaukee, Chicago, and then from Chicago to Detroit, then St. Louis, and then New Orleans. So our whole track is that. And then we also have, this is one thing I didn't really talk about. We're doing everything through, everything that we're doing not only we're getting food access to people, but we're also getting income from those meals that we're doing. So we're actually able to be self-sustainable. So we actually won't need any donations once our first building is built. We never have to ask again. And there is this urgency right now, like, we do need the funds now, because once we get this building built, we are only able to take, with all that food, only 2 grocery stores right now. Once we're open, we'll be able to take all 20 grocery stores in the area, and Cisco and US Foods will be able to intake in that one facility. We'll be able to put 50,000 meals a week out in the community, and that's where our urgency is for right now. Most nonprofits will tell you if you want to do a campaign, what you have to do is it's a 5-year process, and you have to first raise 60%, and then after you raise 60, then you go to your big donors up to 80, and then the last 20 in public. And every single week, we go out to the homeless encampments, and we give meals to people. And I really want to ask you, like, if you're looking face to face with someone who's homeless, with 3 kids, living in a tent, and winter's coming, how you give them an honest look in the face and say, oh, don't worry, 5 years from now, we'll have a facility built where we'll be able to get you food. I'm sorry if I get emotional, but like, we go every week and, we'll have kids who will come up and give a hug to my leg because it's the first warm meal they've had in 3 weeks. So like for me, that's where my urgency is that when you're actually, it's one thing I think when you watch a video of it, but it's another to like be boots on the ground and have that engagement. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking before I try in front of all you. But anyway, thank you guys again so much.